The new NIH Data Management and Sharing Policy will go into effect January 2023. This tutorial will cover information about the policy that researchers, faculty, and students at UMass Chan Medical School need to know. What is the new Data Management and Sharing Policy? From the NIH statement on their policy for data management and sharing notice, the National Institutes of Health is issuing this final NIH policy for data management and sharing to promote the management and sharing of scientific data generated from NIH-funded or conducted research. This policy establishes the requirements of submission of data management and sharing plans in compliance with NIH Institute, Center, or Office-approved plans. It also emphasizes the importance of good data management practices and establishes the expectation for maximizing the appropriate sharing of scientific data generated from NIH-funded or conducted research, with justified limitations or exceptions. This policy applies to research funded or conducted by the NIH that results in the generation of scientific data. There's a lot of information to unpack here, and this tutorial will cover the basics of the new NIH DMS policy and how it will impact you. We will cover the who's, what's, when's, why's, and how's of the new policy, the elements you must include in your data management and sharing or DMS plan, and resources for writing a DMS plan. Who does the new policy impact? The new NIH DMS policy impacts anyone conducting NIH-supported research generating scientific data. Previously, DMS plans were only required for grants related to certain institutes, centers, or offices, or for grants amounting to $500,000 or more. The new policy applies to grants from all ICOs and of all sizes. What types of grant funding does this new policy impact? Specifically, the new NIH DMS policy applies to all research funded, in part or in whole, by NIH funds that generate scientific data, including extramural grants, contracts, intramural research projects, and all other NIH funding mechanisms. This is not limited to specific types of NIH or ICO funding. But what does the NIH mean by scientific data? What aspects of your research will be impacted? Let's explore this some more. In the specific context of the NIH DMS policy, scientific data includes data of sufficient quality to validate and replicate research findings, data resulting from your study, even if that data does not end up supporting any publications, and any null findings. In the specific context of the NIH DMS policy, scientific data does not include, and therefore you do not need to share, the following: lab notebooks, any preliminary analyses, case report forms, any physical objects such as lab specimens, any plans you may have for future research, and any communications you have had with colleagues about your research. Knowing what data you do and do not need to plan for managing and sharing is essential to know as you begin to draft your DMS plan. We will go into more detail on what the elements of your DMS plan should be later in this tutorial, but in short, your DMS plan should detail how your scientific data and metadata will be managed and shared, and identify any potential limitations or restrictions on sharing. For example, information that may violate the privacy of human subjects, or information that may be personally identifiable. While it is possible to revise or adjust your DMS plan after submitting your grant application, the management piece of the policy requires you to comply with your DMS plan throughout the course of your project as approved by the NIH ICO. The new NIH DMS policy applies to any grant application submitted on or after January 25, 2023. Grant applications submitted prior to January 25th are not subject to the new policy, though please refer to any ICO-specific DMS policies that are already in place. this policy will replace the 2003 data sharing policy that currently applies to all NIH grants. So why a new policy? The new NIH DMS policy puts additional responsibilities and burdens on researchers receiving funding from the NIH. So why is data management and sharing important, and why is the NIH updating their current DMS policy now? In the words of Lisa Federer of the National Library of Medicine, data sharing is essential to the more rapid translation of research results into knowledge, products, and procedures to improve human health. This vision is at the core of the new policy, but the new policy also seeks to instill good research data management practices and equitable and accessible sharing of NIH-funded data for the purposes of advancing rigorous and reproducible research by allowing for the validation of results, promoting equitable access to research, and providing citation and collaboration opportunities for research. It also promotes public trust in scientific research by demonstrating transparency and accountability, good stewardship of taxpayer funds, and by maximizing the contributions of research participants. So how does this new DMS policy relate to previous policies? You may already be familiar with other DMS policies the NIH and some of the institutes, centers, and offices already have in place. So what's different now? As mentioned earlier, the new policy replaces the 2003 NIH data sharing policy. The new DMS policy will not override or replace policies that specific ICOs may already have in place, but rather incorporate them. The new NIH DMS policy represents the minimum requirement for all NIH and ICO grants. Individual ICOs may provide more specific guidance. For example, instead of writing a separate genomic DMS plan, you will now write an NIH DMS plan that includes the requirements for a genomic DMS plan. A few examples of ICOs with DMS policies already in place include the National Cancer Institute, the National Human Genome Research Institute, the National Institute on Aging, the National Institute on Drug Abuse, and more. For a complete list of NIH data sharing policies, please visit the URL on this slide. It is essential to consider your DMS plan across all phases of your NIH grant-funded research project. An important change from the old policy to the new is that DMS plans must now be included with your initial grant submission. Previously, a DMS plan was only required after approval. Your initial plan should only be 1 to 2 pages in length. During the grant assessment stage, you may receive feedback on your proposed DMS plan prior to or after acceptance of your grant proposal, but your DMS plan will not affect the proposal score. Revisions can be made throughout the project. Just be sure to inform your program officer. Your approved DMS plan will be incorporated into the final terms and conditions of your grant. Your project will be monitored at regular intervals in your Research Performance Progress Reports, or RPPRs, to be sure that you are complying with your plan. And your adherence to your approved DMS plan may factor into future funding decisions. It is necessary and essential to plan for the management and eventual sharing of your research data throughout all phases of your research project. For all stages of research, DMS plans must do the following: maximize data sharing with justifiable limitations, provide detail for how all data should be managed, including data not being shared, outline a plan for the protection of privacy, rights, and confidentiality, and abide by all federal, tribal, state, and local laws and regulations. So what do you need to include in your DMS plan? There are 6 core elements required of your DMS plan: the data description, tools, software, and code used, data standards, plans for preservation, access, and timelines, details on access, distribution, and reuse considerations, and plans for oversight of data management. Let's talk about each of these in a little more detail. Data description. In this section, you will summarize the scientific data necessary to validate your findings. You should list or create a table to describe the datasets that will be created or used as part of your study, including the data type, format, size, and number of files. Estimates are acceptable as necessary. Which datasets will be shared, the level of aggregation, de-identification, or processing and cleaning that will be done prior to sharing, and the source of any secondary data or previously collected data reused in the project. Tools, software, and code. In this section of your DMS plan, you must identify tools, software, and/or the code necessary to access or manipulate your data. This section of your plan should include the following elements: information about any specialized software or tools needed to access or manipulate your data, the availability of those tools to other researchers. Are they open source tools that are freely available, or are they proprietary tools requiring purchase or subscription? And what is the expected lifespan of these tools? How long will they be available for? Standards. You should also include a section in your DMS plan that covers the standards that will be used for sharing the data and metadata associated with your research. Standards can include, but aren't limited to, the following: data formats, metadata schema, data dictionaries, persistent identifiers, definitions, and consensus standards. You will want to consider whether there are discipline-specific schemas and standards you should adhere to, or if common standards are appropriate. If you're not sure what's right for your research project, some of the resources listed at the end of this tutorial can help you out. Preservation, access, and timelines. This section of your DMS plan should provide plans and timelines for sharing and preserving your data for long-term usability. Information to include in this section is the name and location of the repository you plan to use, details on how your data will be findable, and information on when you plan to share your data. For additional information on choosing an appropriate repository for your research data, talk to one of the data librarians at the Lamar Soutter Library for help. Additional considerations for this element of your DMS plan include when to share your data and for how long to preserve it for. According to the NIH policy, data should be shared no later than the time of publication or the end of the award period. Determining how long your data should be preserved for is less clear-cut, and you should take the following into consideration when making those decisions. What are the relevant requirements and expectations for your discipline, for the type of data you produced? Does the journal you publish your research in have any policies on data preservation? Does the repository where you're depositing your data have any policies on retention and preservation? Access, distribution, and reuse considerations. Do you really have to share all of your data? No. The NIH recognizes several reasons why you would or should not share your data. This section of your DMS plan is the place to include that necessary information. Important considerations that may affect the extent of data sharing you're able to do include legal factors associated with federal, tribal, state, or local regulations, policies, and laws, as well as ethical, privacy, and confidentiality protections and considerations. Oversight of data management. This last section of your DMS plan should detail your plan for oversight and ensuring your DMS plan is carried out. You should list the names and titles or roles of everyone who will be responsible for monitoring compliance with the plan. Possible roles include who will be responsible for collecting data, analyzing the data, reviewing the data and/or results, sharing or publishing the data, owning the final data, and serving as a point of contact for the data after the project's completion. The NIH understands that members of your research team may change throughout the course of the project, so you will need to keep this portion of your plan up to date as personnel changes occur. These changes can be updated as part of your research performance progress reports. Lastly, you should be explicit in how often compliance with your DMS plan will be verified, monthly, weekly, etc. The NIH does acknowledge there are additional costs associated with these new requirements, and they have outlined guidelines for allowable costs that may be covered in your grant proposal. Reasonable costs allowed in budget requests include those associated with data curation and development of supporting documentation, preserving or sharing data through repositories, or local data management costs. It is important to note that these costs must be expended during the period of performance. Costs the NIH does not consider as allowable data sharing costs include infrastructure costs or those associated with routine conduct of research. Not sure how to estimate costs for your DMS plan? There are several resources available to help you out. Two excellent places to start are sharing.nih.gov. The NIH's site on scientific data sharing has several resources available to help you with estimating costs, as well as additional clarification on allowable versus non-allowable costs. And the National Academies for Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine have curated resources that will help you determine DMS costs across the life cycle of your data, from primary research phases to costs associated with repository storage and long-term preservation. Looking for more help? The NIH and UMass Chan have several resources to help answer your questions about the new NIH DMS policy. DMP Tool is a free service that lets you create data management plans for specific funding agencies. The tool has sample and template plans available to help you complete the requirements for the new NIH DMS policy. Guidance specific to UMass Chan Medical School researchers have also been provided for you by the research data librarians at the Lamar Soutter Library. You can access DMP Tool by going to dmptool.org and creating an account using your UMass Chan credentials. Upon logging in, you will want to select Create a Plan from the top menu to start your new DMS plan. Next, you will be prompted to create a name for your project and choose your primary funding organization. Your research organization will be automatically filled in as UMass Chan if you log in with your UMass Chan credentials. If your proposal falls under the new policy, you will select NIH Gen DMSP from the Funding Organization drop-down menu here. The next step is to write your DMS plan. Additional guidance is provided in the right-hand pane to help you. Still have questions? We've got you covered. DMP Tool allows you to request expert feedback right from their interface. Simply click a button and your plan will be sent to be reviewed by one of the expert data librarians at the Lamar Soutter Library. In addition to DMP Tool, there are several resources available to you, both outside of and within UMass Chan Medical School. Sharing.nih.gov includes a variety of resources to help with planning and budgeting, as previously discussed, sharing data and selecting repositories, understanding NIH policies, and finding which policies apply to you. Resources within UMass Chan include, but are not limited to, the Research Technology Office, the Research Informatics Core, the IRB, Bridge Innovation and Business Development, and of course, the Lamar Soutter Library. Expert research data librarians at the library are ready to help you with your DMS plan questions. Connect with us anywhere you see the red Ask a Librarian button on our website, stop by the library and see us, or get help on your own time by checking out our specially curated NIH Data Management and Sharing Policy Guide at libraryguides.umassmed.edu/NIH-DMS-policy. Please don't hesitate to reach out to either of our research data librarians with questions about the NIH Data Management and Sharing Policy or your next NIH Data Management and Sharing Plan.